Thank you, everyone. Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for making time. Maybe I'll do a quick introduction. My name is Vincent. I'm from the YouTube Content Partnerships team. So very quickly, I work on the Malaysia-Singapore relationship. So I work with key partners in both countries. And a quick background is I've spent about 10 years of my life in free-to-air and pay TV network. So news is very close to my heart. And today I want to spend some time talking to you on two broad things, right? Number one is how should you think about your strategy on election in YouTube particularly, and what would that content plan look like when election kicks in, right? So that gives you an idea on like what to do, where should you focus your energy on, and how do you plan out your entire channel plan for the period of election. So without further ado, there's quite a number of slides I want to cover, but let's do this. Please input your questions at any point of time in the chat box so that I can tackle them as I go along or at the very end. But that's an easy way for you to not forget what you want to ask. So let's get that moving so that we can tackle some of these questions that you have in mind, your burning questions. But if you feel that there's more context for you to ask in person, please unmute yourself and ask if that works for you. Okay? Now let's go on. So I just want to bring you through like the broad picture on how YouTube is thinking about news. Our focus has always, and our guiding principle has always been within these three pillars. Number one, we want to make authoritative sources like yourself readily available for our audiences, so that they're able to find news which are real, news which are legit, and which is readily accessible. Number two, we want news to be factual in the sense that we are able to give audience context, but really give them the space to make their own decision on what they think about the news. So we remain objective in providing factual news out there to our audiences. And last but not least, we want to be able to support journalism, and hence that's why we have this session like this today, is to equip you with the necessary tools and knowledge and technology for you to be able to bring your news to the next level. And in line with supporting this entire sphere, we actually have enabled a couple of things on YouTube, and you may seen them already today. We have what we call News on Home, which is top news, which is a special shelf which brings up like all these different news sources. There's also breaking news, which is a bit different, taking different signals on site and really surfacing this. Today we also have COVID news, if you realize. But in search, if you're searching for a particular topic, we also surface news which are top consumed news into this as well. Now you may have some questions on like what is the eligibility, how does S&D works. Now do think about this as a surfacing of your normal VOD content, right? So it still takes up like signals like relatability, factual, whether people are coming to your site or not, authoritative, which sites they're from, and things like that. So this goes back to your normal VOD strategy as well. But today, let's focus on really what does election mean on the YouTube platform and what should you do. So when I think about election, really, the general strategy doesn't run. So when I talk about content strategy on YouTube, there's largely three buckets of content over here. So the first is really what we call the hero content, right? So the hero content is a big moment which we are all gearing towards. And that's a moment that collectively all your audience are waiting for. Now, this could be moments like, for example, the announcement of the results when it comes to the polling, right? Or this could be the manifesto announcement, for example. Or this could be opposition leader or government leaders' speeches, right? So these are really hero moments where you know everybody will be gearing towards. But there's also another like sort of like the wave that you see over here. The wave is what we call hub content, right? So this is building towards like similar to the hero content. This is building towards a particular moment, but it is temporary, right? So you are able to do a lot more of this content as in hub because there's opportunity for you to do it. Now, an example would be analysis, right? Pre-election analysis, party analysis, candidate analysis, post-election analysis. All this are basically around the hero content, but you're creating special moments around it. Okay, so these are periodic formats that you actually put out depending on what the channel strategy is. And last but not least is something we call help content. Now this one, it's basically something that's a lot more, I would say, evergreen in nature. Like it will be relevant today, it'll be relevant tomorrow, it'll be relevant 5 days down the road, a month down the road. Things like, for example, a candidate interview, which could be really relevant today and tomorrow and the day after. Or it could be like an explainer on a certain process. Like, for example, an explainer on election process or voting process or postal vote process, right? Or it could be like tackling specific issues like health issues, right? So we talk about like a manifesto in budget, and we talk about like COVID entitlement, for example. So you can actually cover topics like that in your help, which is again a lot more flat line. Doesn't have a moment to gear towards to, but you're tackling topics which can be a lot more evergreen in nature. Okay, so that's basically how you should think about when you're crafting your content plan. Where does the content that you plan to create fall under? How can I create a cohesive plan throughout the entire, say, 6 to 8 weeks of like a election period? Now, in order for you to create a good sort of like a hub content, you need to think about really what makes sense for you in terms of formats. What are you currently doing as your day-to-day news? And what can you add more value? Can you shift those contents into a lot more election related? Now, explainers in this sense is a really good way, because explainers are really in-depth, investigative, or explaining explanatory journalism that you can actually put in, right? You can actually go into specific topics I was talking about, be it by party, be it by manifesto, be it by issues faced by Malaysians in particular. And you can tackle those topics in different lights, different perspective, getting experts to come in and cover some of these topics. Now, those are really explainers, and it gives a lot of value. Now, remember, people are coming to your channel for a value exchange. So how do you really give good value to them is why they will come back to your channel. So hub content strategy becomes extremely important in this sense, right? And analysis will be part of that as well. Now, another thing that I really want to bring towards your attention is speed. Now, of course, as we're all in news, speed is something that we're very accustomed to. We have journalists on ground doing our mobile live. We have people really stalking and waiting in front of a minister's house to catch the fastest news, right? That is something that all news journalists are very accustomed to. But really in YouTube, going to speed to market makes a huge difference. Now, I want to give you an example over like the same news. Like you see, this is in the US, that is posted on different time, right? Someone posting the news at 4:30 fresh out of the gate, and someone posting at 11:40 p.m. and someone posting at 12 a.m. with news channel of similar sizes. You see how the view counts actually differ from one news sources to another. You can get a couple million right off the gate. You can get about 1 million after a couple of hours, and even like over at midnight, the news get a bit stale because people have seen it. People have consumed the news. Unless you're coming in with different explanatory, coming in a different perspective in terms of analysis and things like that, it gets stale really quickly. So over here is how can you bring the highest quality of news at the quickest time possible, right? And you want to do this habitually. You want to do this consistently. Because why? The moment you're consistent, audience will come back, and audience will then consume. They're used to the pattern of the channel. They know, hey, the next time I want to get the fastest news, this is a channel where I should go into. Okay. Next is live engagement. Now, in terms of live, all channels today, news channel, have done some form of live, but you can think of live in many different aspects, right? You can be there just showcasing a PC, for example, right? So it's a one-way that you're showing the PC, the questions going on, and that's where your live engagement. But you can also think about live as in how can I use live to engage with my audience? Before going into a PC, for example, do I want to get questions from the audience? What should I ask? Right? You can compile some of this. This builds a two-way relationship. This builds an engagement between you and your audience, but you're basically covering the same thing as the other channel. You're covering the PC, but now you have an engagement model that you want to bring into the forum. That's something that you can do, or you want to have a sit down format, like an expert analysis sit down format with your journalists, and then you want to cover like questions from the audience. That's also another way to do it. So it keeps the whole conversation a lot more real rather than a lot more scripted per se. Okay, so that's one way you can do this. And an example over here is basically a Korean channel has actually tackled this really nicely, and to include basically live questions as part of the formats of the show. Now, when it comes to live, then chat becomes one thing, right? So because you will find at times when you go live, there will be a lot of like spam chats, for example, or there could be a lot of like chats that you don't want to be in there. Now, there are ways to moderate this chat. You're able to include block lists, for example, list of words that you don't want to be in there, or profanity, for example, or you want to include a lot more sensitive topics, racial topics that you don't want to be in there. You're able to use chat moderation tools to better control the flow of the chat. But you can also have chat moderators in there. You can assign specific chat managers to go in and basically work on the chat, work on answering questions, work on pinning some of the chats in there to create a more engaging experience and a more clean experience for your audience. But there are also different tools, like for example, slow chat, which can then limit someone's ability to chat by gating the time. Like it could be, you can only post in a chat every 15 seconds instead of me just copy paste spam, copy paste spam. That's also one way to do it. But like chat moderation will become a tool for you to sort of really cater and tailor the sort of chat experience you want your audience to go towards. Now, another way we've seen publishers and news outlets use chat is this. They have actually used an invite-only chat, which means they only invite a specific amount of people. Like in this example over here, you're able to see that this like Washington Post or have actually used invite-only chat to post different timeline messages, right? So for example, someone coming into your live 100% new today is able to see like, okay, at 4 p.m. this happened, 4:01 this happened, 4:03 this happened, and they can give a timeline of updates about what has happened throughout the entire live stream. So instead of using it as an engagement tool between yourself and the audience, you can also use this as a timeline check and an update based on what has happened throughout the time that you have gone live. Now, again, you can actually assign someone to do this for you, or you can, the journalist and broadcaster can actually just be the one updating it themselves. But this is another use case of live, which will be extremely useful. Next, this is something I won't go into too much detail because I think this is something that we are all familiar with. I think Malaysian news outlets are really quick, really good on hand in bringing live there and then, right? So be it the live at a particular location, we are always there, we're at a PC. How do we bring live into YouTube? Because this is a component where audience are looking for, they're looking for immediacy today, right? They want to be connected to what's happening on ground, especially when you get into the thick of election, when things are happening at multiple locations at the same time, right? You have people campaigning, you have speeches going on. How do you capture this? Mobile live is a very prominent way to bring this through. But when I think about mobile live, you need to think about how many lives are you bringing to the channel at the same time? How are you arranging this live? That comes in the optimization of the channel, which I will also talk about now as well. So first thing first, how do you really optimize your channel for success? I think one way is to really, I cannot stress this further, is to really create deep analysis and explainers on specific topics. Now, why explainers is a format that will work for you is because explainers are really mainly educational, right? It educates your audience about a specific topic, about a person, about issues that they may care about. So you as a journalist would know, like, here are some pressing issues that I have resources into looking at multiple angles, and I want to create an explainer out of this. This is something you should definitely try and explore, because not only it's educational, it is also evergreen, because relevancy is key over here. We want to tackle topics that is really deep within the Malaysian's mind, that is actually sensitive and topical, not only today, but the day after, and tomorrow as well. And these are usually very intriguing. It could be like a documentary style. It could be very long in format. And you can also think about, how can I create a format that can tackle a specific topics in multi-episode facet, right? So I can think about for example, illegal immigrant as a topic. I can think about an interview with an illegal immigrant. I can think about a COVID perspective on illegal immigrant. I can think about job opportunity. I can think about national safety. You look at a topic like illegal immigrant, there's so many facets to it that you can actually bounce into, and that's where explainer can really add value. So in the context of election, where is the topic that Malaysians care about? How can I expand this topic so that I build myself not only as a pure election pushing out news, but I have really deep educational, investigative materials that I can build across all of this. Okay? And the basis of storytelling does not run. Now, the difference from a normal news posting is, it's a one-way factual. I'm delivering the facts out there. But you can also think about, when you create news like explainers, how do you think about telling a story like a normal content? There is a hook in the very beginning, underlying problem that people are facing. How do I create a climax where I talk to certain people, certain figureheads that's able to answer and tackle some of these questions? And how do I give them a resolution, sort of like this is the plan that this MP has to bring forward, or this is the current plan that we have in hand to tackle this. Is this enough, right? The whole idea is to be thought-provoking, but yet delivering solid news at the same time. But it is the art of storytelling that will really capture your audience over here, right? So think about news story as not just a one-way delivery. Think about it as a storytelling per se, like you're writing a script almost, but in a factual way and not a fiction way. And there is full merits of, like, because YouTube is a space that celebrates all sort of videos. Really, we find across our research that our audience like watching snippets, right? They want to know what is the entire thing all about in 4 minutes, for example. But there are people who also enjoy the entire 1.5 hours interview, per se. They like full context, they like snippet, and the consumption behavior for some of these contents are very different, right? If they're in a rush and they just want to get a TLDR from the interview, they like the snippet, right? But if they have the time and they just want to really get deep into the topic, full interview is something that YouTube celebrates. It's not something that you're able to do on broadcast per se, because it's too long for broadcast. But on YouTube, we encourage you to play with all different formats, right? So don't be shy in uploading a raw full video, because really that is what our audience are searching for as well. And from there, you can create different short form videos, different mid form videos, and different highlights from the interview. Feel free to do that, because now you realize that from a 90 minutes interview, I today have 27 or 28 different content that is from that single interview itself. And that's really where you are able to expand your value as a broadcaster, as a journalist, to offer a lot more to the audience and to cater to their consumption behavior. Next, I want to talk about something that we often forget about, and in the name forget, it's really in line, because archive is something that I want to bring to the picture. There are things that the news is super valuable for, is for all the archive news that we have done, news from even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? Like, for example, if I'm doing a candidate profiling, if I'm profiling Prime Minister Ismail Sabri today, I want to be able to look at his political journey, for example, what he has shared in his manifesto as part of UMNO and what he has shared as part of his entire political career. Can I get some of these old snippets and old clips from before into creating a new package content? So think about this, right? The footage is old, but the storytelling is new. You can add this, layer this by just adding VO, right? Or you can just package them together by adding new supers, new visuals, and creating something totally new from something old. So it's 100% editing work, but you're able to create new storytelling angle and new content for elections. So now think about format that you have. Like the format, lack of a better example, I can think about the candidates look back, right? All the candidates that are competing, I can do a look back based on all the archive footage that I have and build a storytelling from that. That's one way that you can actually use it and create better story based on existing materials. Now, this one is something that's really interesting because all of you in the room today are journalists on your own. So how can we give journalists a voice? How can we create a streamline of new faces also and during election? Like for example, you have probably covered and different news, but really, can you be the anchor of that particular format? Can you be the anchor of the particular type of interview? Like for example, all candidate interview will be brought by this guy, or all investigative interview another person, right? And another lady, another woman, whichever it is. But the whole idea here is putting face to the particular story, and people relate better to a person, right? So that's where you actually have like your host really delivering the news, talking directly to camera, introducing themselves, and people create affinity to this folks. And think about the journalist, an extension of the channel, right? Because in their own capacity, the journalist is also an influencer in that, right? And they're also posting out news, and they are an extension of what the news channel is all about, and they are able to deliver the news to a wider set of audience from just the core YouTube channel per se. And another thing I feel like that the audience really appreciate, it's an expert commentary, right? So over here, it's really, how do you find different topical experts to come in and add value to your news piece? If we are talking about economy, can we get an economic expert? If we're talking about COVID news, can we get a medical expert that will come in? Because oftentimes this expert brings authority, right? And it brings legibility to the news. Instead of just a journalist bringing talking about it, how do you really work in advance with some of these experts and on the field that you want to tackle, on the topics and issues that you want to tackle? So think about elections. What are the topics that you want to tackle? As I was talking about explainers earlier, who can I really secure to talk about these topics? And then I can really build a voice, a DNA, a tone for the channel on who I am, because I am credible, because I'm able to get these people to come in and share knowledge and debate on specific topics. And that's where we want you to be, because we want you to build a brand which is very much authoritative in nature. And last but not least, putting out good work on its own sometimes is not enough, right? So we feel like we've done the best interview, but there are aspects to packaging that really changes the search and discovery of your content on YouTube. Now, I just want to cover the basics over here, but like things like, for example, having a title, having a thumbnail, having a description may sound like the most trivial thing. But let me tell you how title can make a difference, right? Imagine a very descriptive title. Imagine a very accurate title. So I like to think about when I'm putting a title for the video that I'm creating, what are your audience going to search for? Does your title make sense? Is it something that audience will actually search for it? And if the answer is yes, then yes, you probably have a good title. And a good way to practice this is maybe have a collection of a couple of titles, brainstorm and try it out with some of your colleagues and see what they think about it. And also the one that makes the most sense is take a look at your historical data. Take a look at analytics. What sort of title has worked for you? What has given you the best click-through rate? What has given you the best impressions? How can I use some of those best practices that I have into my titling strategy? This goes the same as thumbnail as well. Play out with different thumbnails. Have a feature of a face, have a feature of an event, have like an action motion, and be very descriptive. You can also have an extension of title on your thumbnail, right? So you spell it exactly. So when someone sees the thumbnail, they know exactly what to expect from the video. So the whole idea is when an audience come in and see your title and thumbnail, they know exactly what to expect and they will immediately. So the propensity of them clicking onto it is a lot higher than being like vague in that sense. Now, description is important because description will enhance discovery and search for your content. So when someone is searching for a video, say for example, you're searching for polling results, even though your title doesn't have a polling result, but in your description, you talk about polling result in detail, that will still push your video into a search and discovery. So I hope you understand the packaging is as important as your storytelling and the good work that you've put in your journalism report. Another thing to really differentiate yourself from all the different news outlet out there is really differentiate by having a sort of like a look and feel like a brand guide towards your content marketing, right? So when I think about my thumbnail, how can I clearly, just in advance, like in this CNN and Time example over here, you see them really clearly calling out. When someone sees this, they know it's a CNN piece, right? And they know it's a Time piece. But what could you have done differently in your own context? How can you create like a template that all your journalists can actually really adapt to really quickly? Okay, and that's one way to do it. And you can also think about thumbnail. How can I, like I was saying earlier, how can I call out certain things? Like if it's a polling result, can I say like polling results for 2021 announced, something like that on the thumbnail itself, so that people can get a very clear information by just looking at your thumbnail and your title on its own. But this is how you can really differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack. Now, if you think that journalism and putting out good work and packaging it is already hard enough, now here comes another component, because this is extremely important. YouTube on its own is not just a publishing repository. We're not putting a collection of video and like hope and pray that people will watch it. There's work that's put behind it. So I like to think about YouTube as a social platform as well. There are different tools that you can actually use today. For example, there is a community tab that I know maybe not a lot of people in this room probably use this or is aware, but this can be super powerful if used correctly. Now, think of this as a posting within your YouTube page so that your subscribers can basically interact with you. Now, you can use this in multiple aspects. One way to use this is, one case is I can share an upcoming clip that I'm posting. I can share a behind the scenes. I can share an extended interview, right? But I can also ask my audience for opinion. For example, who do you want me to interview next? Candidate A, B, C, D. Your audience, not surprisingly, will be very vocal in telling you who they want to speak, who they want you to speak to. And they can vote, and immediately your next interview can be that particular candidate because it's what your audience is looking for. So that's just some of the use cases that I have, but feel free to play with it. Go and check out what some other news outlets are doing and find out what works for you and your DNA and your tonality. And next, maybe there is a lot of really key tools, but one tool that I want to bring to your attention is custom end screens, because this really help you in multiple ways. Number one, if you're doing a format-based approach, so it's not an ad hoc live, it is an explainer that you do, for example, candidate interview. I always use it because it's easy to relate to elections. And You have candidate A, but now they've watched the video and you want to introduce them to a candidate B video. How can you do that? End screens is a good way to do that. Because within the end screens itself, you can actually promote video within the same playlist. You can also get them to subscribe to your channel. So this makes perfect sense because immediately there's multiple actions that could be taken within this end screen. You're able to then drive a lot more engagement and views and watch time into your upcoming video. And it creates a continuity of behavior. And it also drives a subscription, which in the long tail drives the channel up as well. Next, I really want all of us to really think about analytics, right? And analytics come in different form. This particular example is Google Trends. So when you think about, I want to cover, I'll give you a use case, right? So this basically help you to decide which is more popular, what are people searching for on YouTube, what are people searching for on Google. So you see the example over here in the box over there, right? The YouTube search. When you go into trends.google.com, you are able to then search this on Google or on the YouTube spaces, okay? And you can search, for example, candidate A versus candidate B. I'm not sure which one should I cover. You can search and see which one is more popular when it comes to trends in searches. And then you can use that to guide your decision into making those content. Or I want to cover about economy, or I want to cover about foreign worker as a problem, as an issue. You can also use this to decide where should I put my focus in. But apart from that, you're also using trends, you're able to see how they have performed over time. You're able to see where people are searching for. Like within Malaysia, is it coming from East Malaysia or Northern or Southern or East Coast? You're able to get all these data points, which is then really, really, if you're strapped for resources, this gives you a guide on where you should put your focus on and really, really make a lot more sense in putting where the eggs where it matters, right? Putting your effort where it matters. Next is really, I want to bring you through some of the key metric that you should pay attention on when you look at your data and analytics. Because data analytics is the only thing which is 100% non-biased, 100% truth, right? Because to show you details with just pure facts. So some of the details that you should definitely take a look at is number one, click-through rate. And why this is important? Because a click-through rate will show you a couple of things. It will show you how appealing your title and thumbnail is to the audience who's watching it, right? Because when I see a title and thumbnail, if I click on it more often than not, which means I'm doing something right over there. So what I'll do usually is I'll look at the top maybe 100 videos today that you have done. The highest click-through rate. What is similar within this video? Is it the topic that I've called out very clearly? Is it the thumbnail? How is it different from the rest? Is it the titling of itself? So think about some pointers that you can pick out from these findings. Try and see how you can actually adapt and implement it in your future strategy. Next is view duration will tell you a lot of story, right? So view duration, for example, if I'm creating a 4 minutes video, but my average view duration is only 20 seconds long. Is there something wrong with the video? Am I being too draggy? Can this 4 minutes video now be a 2 minutes video? Now, can this 2 minutes video now have a really, really strong hook at the start? Give them a teaser of what to expect. Think about storytelling. Think about how you position the news. Think about the thumbnail. Think about the title. How can you get them to stay on your content longer? And last but not least is watch time. Now, average reach duration and watch time are pretty much in line. But what it means is it tells you how long people are watching your content and staying on your content. Now, historically, what we have seen is like live content usually have better watch time because people are staying in more, people are tuning in, people are excited to know what's coming up. And that's really how you build in. And engagement is really, really key. So when I was talking about live chat earlier and things like that, how you engage with consumers, that's one way to think about how to increase your watch time and view duration. So as I was talking about all of this, one thing to really keep in mind is YouTube is all about testing. It's all about implementing what you learn from your test and using data and analytics to guide you. I know it sounds like a lot because we're already doing content, we're already packaging it, and now you want me to take a look at all these things that is just numbers at the back end. But really, these numbers are fundamental to the success of of your channel, of your broadcast in YouTube. And the whole idea here is I want to help everyone here today and the channels here today to get your news out to as many Malaysians as possible. And not only Malaysians, but to a worldwide audience. And how do we do that? And that is really by creating content that matters, right? Creating a framework of packaging that really is the most optimized. And I can only do that by really testing them by topics, testing them by thumbnails, testing them by the metadata that I create, but also understanding where they are, why they are watching this, what is their feedback from community, and that really gives me a holistic picture into my strategy into creating a content. So it is part art, but really the another part of it is really part science, right? Understanding that. And last but not least, just on what is new on YouTube today, one thing I want to bring you through, the most important thing possibly in the last 6 weeks is something called Shorts. And this is a short form video snackable content that has come onto YouTube. Now, we have launched this as a viewing experience for about a couple of months already. But what we've really launched about 6 weeks ago is something called the Shorts tool, which enable creators, and in this case, journalists, news outlet, to create short form news video that people can consume. Now, the viewing experience for Shorts is slightly different from the normal VOD and normal video that you put up. And this is basically a 1 minute vertical experience, and the whole motion of swiping up and swiping down, right? So that they can skip news really quickly. But this is a snackable news content. Think about it this way. We've seen a lot of news outlets which have really garnered a huge number of like audience from Shorts itself. And Shorts is used as a subscription tool as well. Now, one channel that I'll probably bring to your attention is do take a look at Al Jazeera, for example, who have really adapted like Shorts as a tool in order to get a lot of new audience in here. So how Shorts essentially will differ from your normal video is, number one, how it's presented. It's presented on a vertical screen rather than a horizontal screen, right? And it is snackable. Someone is coming in, viewing it for 1 minute and skipping it, right? So make it very, very, you can have a different tone, a different voice, or you can have really just a snackable strategy for your news outlet. So this is something that's really, really new, but something that's growing really, really quickly. So it's important for you to think about what it means for your outlet. So that concludes like the first part of it. I'm going to go through like what election is going to look like as a content strategy. I won't spend too much time on that. I'll just zoom through the slides. But like this is the meat of what I want to share with you today, and I hope that that gives you a good picture. Okay. So now let's think about election. Very quickly, election is split up across. This is how I see it at least, to like 5 different points. Number 1 is awareness. Number 2 is announcement of when the election is going to happen. Number 3 is like the campaigning period. And then we go into polling and counting and the results. And then you have the new government sworn in, and then you have a new prime minister at the end of the whole campaign. So what does content looks like in different parts of this? During the awareness phase, I want to really call out one thing. Always remember, at every election, there are millions of voters who are going to vote for the first time. They don't know how election works. How can you, as a news outlet, really create content to help them, right? To explain to them what this is. This could be explaining what the electoral process is, how to register themselves. And it could be even a comedic spin, right? It could be like, can you tell the difference between the different party symbol? Like it's a comedic spin. Or you can talk about the indelible ink, and you can talk about things like postal votes, for example. And you can also cover really broad topics like what the youth are thinking about for 18 plus voters today, what is important to them. And like you can talk about like really how does first time voter really view at like what do they want to who do they want to vote for, like what's really key topics that's really in heart in mind for them. That's one way to tackle it. But you can also go towards a more story angle, right? How can I go more inspirational? Like I want to inspire them via a telling them, hey, I want to get more voters out there. This example over here, I will share all of this, but this is like a 94-year-old Indian voter, like probably one of the oldest voter in India to come out and vote. So if he's coming out to vote, what is your excuse really? Or you can talk about like all these different things that happen within the election. Like you can think about all the kindness, people driving elderlies to voting centers, the volunteers working at the voting centers. Is that story that you can actually count? Why do they do it? What's the mentality and what's the thought behind all those? And can also be about like really opening up to the audience to tackle up certain topics, right? So think about like really interesting, like not even controversial, right? Like topics that people have opinions about. Like for example, party jumping. Should it be encouraged? Should it be discouraged? What is the thought behind? What do people feel about it? Do they trust their MP after they've jumped a party? Topics like that could garner a lot of talkability and interest. So I think you can actually have a platform or an explainer or a debate-like format to really tackle some of these topics, because it's burning topics. How do you create talkability? How do you create content out of these topics? So when I think about like a content pool, I will roughly put it in this buckets like informative, like audience expectation. What do they want? How do I create more storytelling nature sort of content? And can I create personality driven content, right? So be it a specific MP or be it a specific journalist, could also be it. But typically I do want to create like approximately, this is just a rough number, like a 20 odd videos that is around this whole awareness. Now this is before even election is coming, right? This is when the winds, the kabar desas desus of like election is getting into the journalist ears. How do I start seeding some of these contents out there? Then comes the announcement. What do we cover? Now we have a polling date out there. How can we cover this, right? Is there specific, here is a good place to start by creating specific channel identity. Like for example, during the last election, we have different news outlet, like some of them call it Mandat Rakyat. Some of them call it PRU 14. So there is like, or the people's voice, or like there are different branding when it comes to election. So think about what your branding is, and this is a good time to bring out your brand. This is also a good time to think about programming and schedule. Where are my journalists going to be stationed? How is the content strategy is going to be like? What is ad hoc? What is program, right? So thinking about this in advance gives two things. It gives your channel a structure, but it also gives audience an expectation. They know every Monday you have this, and they know you're on top of every ad hoc press conference that's going to happen, and they know that in order for them to catch up to this, they can come to you, right? So before the elections, these are things that you can do. You can talk about the mechanics. You can talk about the different roles in election, who plays what roles, what does SPR play, what does the volunteers play, and all those different kind of stuff. Now, immediately after the election, there are things that you can do. You can do a analysis looking back. You can do about current analysis, and those are some of the things that you can actually do. But you can also cover, like this is ad hoc news, right? Announcement. When I talk about announcement earlier as well, I give you the example of two different announcements. One, full interview, the entire PC 20, 30 minutes. But the other one, it's a live, it's a highlights of what has been spoken. So what are the key takeaways from that particular announcement. Think about your content not in a single facet, think about them in multiple iterations. That way, you're able to make your content work a lot harder for you. I don't only put out one content, I put one plus 8, 10 different variations of it. Why it helps is now audience can come and reach you within this 10 platform instead of a one single video out there. Okay. And then you can have obviously talk show, podcasts, you can have interviews, reaction from different people. And this is how I'll think about it, right? Dates, dates for polling, call for voters, party expectations. So talking to the party leads, party head, party secretariat, you can think about voters' expectation, right? What do they look for? Like in particular, you can go down by areas. In fact, like Lembah Pantai, what they're looking for. You can looking for like in Pekan, what they're looking for, and you can also think about how you want to wrap up the rest, the line of your stuff. Right, you have your schedule, you have the different bulletin wrap up. Can I do like a weekly update and wrap up what has happened? That could be also be a format for you as well. Next is campaigning. Now, when we go into campaigning, we'll go into party-specific stuff, right? So this could be manifesto announcement, right? And when you go into manifesto announcement, you can break this into different topics. You can break into manifesto analysis. You can break into vertical analysis, like economics, like people, like B40, T20, M40. How do you slice and dice them and cover them in a more holistic level? You can even do manifesto versus manifesto. How are they essentially different? And how should voters decide based on the facts that's presented to them, right? So that's one way you can do it. You can also think about party plan, right? What they were before, what is the manifesto before what they were, did they deliver or not, right? And how different is last election from this election? What values have changed? So here are some of these topics which requires a lot more investigative work into it. And this is really interesting because audience now can get like a one-stop on understanding what have been done before. And then you can look at announcement, you can look at candidates specifically, but also during campaigning, rally speeches becomes one of the things that that people are looking forward to, especially when it comes to opposition leader, when it comes to like government leads, when it comes to key people and key cabinet members before, key MPs, key YBs that you know people are really looking forward to. How do you get your journalists on ground? How do you create snippets out of those? That's an area of interest, and you should definitely look at creating over 40 videos because campaigning period is a high time for audience. This is where you should really, really double down and creating value for your audience. Then we get into the polling and the counting. Now, this is where it gets interesting, right? So here is we set things up. Now, number one is the entire polling and announcement is going to be super, super important. How do you make the most out of it? Now, you should think about how you program your show. Like I've given you an example of how to announce your schedule. We should announce this schedule very, very upfront. Like this is what we are going to do daily so that expectations with audience are met. But it's also important to have like a results announcement strategy, right? So how do we announce out to people like, hey, we are definitely going to be there. Like these are the things that we're doing. But before that, what are the ancillary contents that could support that? Like we know we brought like a live counting per se, or like unofficial counts, official counts, all those kind of stuff. How do we plan around it? But also another thing during like before announcement, you can, this is an example of a format, right, that I want to share with you. Like for example, it could be a head-to-head format because Malaysian candidates probably will not sit down for a debate, but you can actually think about like, hey, can I do like a, Vogue 72 questions? This is one way to think about it. How can I get 10 questions out of every MP? So this is a format that I can create, and then I can actually just have like a playlist. All UMNO MPs, Perikatan National MP, whatever MP, you can have, hey, what's your name, what's your party, how long have you been an MP, what constituency, what's your solution for this problem? Why should I vote for you? So it's like call to vote. This could be unique to your news outlet. Think about what it should be. And this is just an example, but you can think about how you should plan it for your particular news outlet per se. D-Day, voting day itself, it's important because voting day, you can choose who to follow, where to follow. That's one way to do it. So look at turnouts. The other way is look at reactions, right? Emotions are usually very, very high during this time. How do you work onto this emotion? How do you tackle them, right? How do you make the most out of them? It's one way to think about it. And then obviously you have results. We spoke about it earlier, which is two parts. Do a setup in advance for the live election result. Number two is all the unofficial results. How do you get to the people the most efficient way, the fastest way, and the most accurate way in that sense? So think about how that translates into a YouTube viewing experience. Because remember, people are high and wanting to know the results, right? Emotions are really boiling at this time. You want to give them and feed into those emotions. So over here, this is like a framework of action plan, but it should be a collection of live video and VOD video. And here's how you can think about it. And maybe in the last couple of minutes, I want to cover just new government. Now everything has ended. We have a new government and a new prime minister and cabinet in the coming days. What sort of content can we do? Obviously, there's an announcement of the winners, and you can also do a post analysis from the election. Look at all these different things. What have we not covered before? What went well? What didn't go well? What was the biggest upset? What was the biggest surprise per se? You can cover all of this as part of the summary as post-election. But really what happens after that is the actual swearing in, and then you have like the cabinet announcement, like what happened today, that happens. So that's basically the post strategy per se. So then over here, this is where things really, really now come to a closure and where you sustain your entire news strategy. So this is where how I think about it, like in terms of mandates, swearing in, ceremony, highlights, and really what is exclusively you. So that is basically, to wrap things up, that is how I think about election. I know I've been speaking nonstop for the last 1 hour, but yeah, election is super interesting times, and do know that election year on year on YouTube is growing at a tremendous speed. And really you should think about how and what this means for your channel on the platform. How can these tools that YouTube have enable you to tell a better story at a more efficient manner?